Hey folks, Scott from IT Rockstars. Welcome to the very first IT Rockstars Masterclass. On today's Masterclass, we have Daniel Welling of Welling MSP. Now, I heard Daniel on a recent Richard Tubb podcast, and Daniel's business is all about helping MSPs and IT companies recruit IT positions. And I thought, wow, why has no one ever thought of doing this before? And I had so many questions about it because I've really only recruited once for an IT position, probably twice actually over the last 10 years. So it's not something that I've really had to do because I've been more in the technical and sales role. So I'd really like to know what the process is, and I'm sure a lot of you guys in the audience would also like to, take some of that knowledge that Daniel has in this process. So Daniel, he is an ex-MSP business owner, and he helps add value for MSPs where he can. This includes mentoring, consulting, recruitment, mergers and acquisitions, and client transfer. Daniel, welcome to the masterclass. We've got a lot to kind of go through here today. I think probably just first for everyone that's listening, if you give us just a little bit of background into what your ex-MSP business was and where you are now with the IT recruitment piece.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, Scott. Hello, everyone. MSP today, as we call an IT services business. So my career started late 90s selling IT to the SME space. Salesperson by trade. The career really followed, I guess, a traditional career. Started in entry-level sales, worked my way up to sales management, then decided that I really wanted to run a business of my own. At the time, formed a business with business partner and a friend of mine. That was 2003. We developed that business over 12 years, sold it in 2014. And when we started out in business, it was an IT support services company. When we finished, we were just starting to talk about it being an MSP. Subsequently, that's really the key three letters that we talk about today. Yep. within the space. Obviously started out in sales, but as a business owner, you acquire lots of skills in lots of different areas, and really have taken that learning and some subsequent learning since the sale of my business into doing what I'm doing today, which is helping other MSP businesses grow and tackle their challenges and take advantage of the opportunities that the marketplace offers, more now than ever before. It's a growing space. It's a maturing space, and very, very exciting, and lots going on.
Excellent, Daniel. So it sounds like you've got a lot of knowledge and experience to part with our audience today then. So as preparation for this masterclass, we kind of got together, we did a little bit of back and forth on the emails, and I basically just broken down your email in a big list that we had on what we were going to cover here as part of the IT recruitment process. So I've got that slide up here. We've got kind of 8 key sections here that we're going to delve in deep to, and I think the first one's really quite a good one actually to start with, because the question is, how do we know when we need another tech? Now, before the recording, we kind of said, well, it can't just be all about the tech. We could actually just be in another position, but I guess that question comes to you: how do you know you need another tech, Daniel? What's from your experience? What have been the key indicators, or do you have a process in regards to finding out if actually you need another body on the ground?
Yeah, and there's lots of components to it. To be fair, we've got some of the points there on the slide, so I won't necessarily walk through those point by point. You kind of have to have your finger on the pulse of your business in terms of a sense of how busy you are versus how optimized the resource is versus the level of service that you're delivering to the customer versus the achievement of your own targets. So there's a lot going on in a business, and it's very much a living organism. So you can have some traps set up that provide you information. So for example, you can be tracking utilization of engineers. That very much though relies on the accurate recording of the time that they're spending. You can be looking at your pipeline in terms of how many new clients you think are going to be coming on board, and therefore what the likely impact on your workload is. You can be looking at the life cycle of your existing staff. So the reality is that not everyone that works within your business will stay within your business forever. So there's probably no hard and fast rule, but if you've had someone that's maybe been with you for 5 or 6 years, then you have to be concerned that they might be looking to leave. So you've got those sorts of considerations going on all of the time. Ultimately, you need to keep the doors open and the lights on for your clients, and yeah, so it's all of those things and 100 others that people will be aware of in their own business that tells them when they're going to take the next person on. In addition, though, if you take someone on too soon, then and you don't have the new revenue coming in, effectively that's gonna hurt your margin, your profitability, and if you wait too long, then you're not going to be able to deliver revenue and bill it and collect the money, but more importantly, you're probably going to put extra pressure on other people within the team, and affects the ultimate client service. So
that's when you can start losing clients as well, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, it's a big question. There's no simple answer.
Okay.
Unfortunately for your listeners, but hopefully there's some tips in there that if you're not already thinking about it or looking at it or planning ahead for, then there's some good areas to consider.
Yeah, I think certainly looking at the current utilization of your engineers certainly seems like the most obvious one to me, but it's almost like having a hyper awareness of different parts of your business. Do you think, is this something that you should kind of check in every month, or is it just as and when is required? Looking at that pipeline, I guess, is probably a good steer in things.
Yeah, and size of organisation will dictate frequency and method. So I guess I'm describing probably a fairly small MSP, one where the owner manager is able to put their arms right around the whole business. Knows all of the customers, knows the key users within the customers. Knows all the staff very well, etc., and therefore is living and breathing the pulse of the business. As you get bigger and you build in layers of management, you get more removed from the coalface, and therefore you're then relying on management tools to create that linkage between the coalface and the decision makers. So the situation where you say perhaps monthly review meetings, if you were having a management team meeting, for example, and you had someone responsible for revenue, someone responsible for delivery, effectively those two people would be conversing regularly to keep the other abreast of what the likely impacts or what was going to be coming down the line. And I think that's a good analogy for growing the business overall. You might start out as an individual running delivery and sales. So all of those processes happen internally at that point. As soon as you add someone else, you then need to add a layer of communication and understanding and working together, and that's really what you're doing. Every new person you add to the organization, you need to feed them into that communication communication structure, so that they can receive information and provide it back, and that will just grow and grow the more people you add.
Okay, excellent. Right, on to the next slide. We've got here the actual job spec as well. So you've realised that you need this other candidate now, and we're going to go out to the market. So what should the job spec look like, and what's your experience been with these job specs?
So you can write from the perspective of the employer or the employee,
Okay.
and and again, there's probably no right or wrong answer to this. To be fair, it's like anything. First of all, you're selling the role in the company to the candidate that's gonna read it, but they need to believe it, so it can't be too silly. You've got to be describing realistically what the role is going to be like for them. So if you say it's all going to be project work, and then they get there and they're sat on the help desk doing backup checks and resetting passwords, they're not going to be happy, and you're going to have
pissed. Yeah,
exactly right, immediate friction. So
have you ever been in that position before, actually, Daniel? Have you seen that before in any of the MSPs you've helped with, where you recruit someone that thinks something and then it's something else?
I hear it. I hear it a lot from candidates, where it's happened to them. I don't really hear it from employers. So it would be, I guess, an admission of guilt in some ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, it tends to be more a concern of candidates than employers. Okay. But I'm sure there's a little bit of truth in it, and there's always two sides to the story. If you're the employer and you're recruiting because you see lots of projects on the horizon, you're naturally going to be talking lots of projects. The candidate picks up on that. So even though you've not expressly said it's all project work, they get there and the first thing they're doing is on the help desk. They're like, what's going on here? You were only talking about projects. So I think it's just being careful about what you communicate and providing a balanced view and description of the role and what it's going to be about.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a really important point, and it is something that I've certainly experienced personally myself, where I've been sold this dream technical position, working with international clients, and there would be a lot of project work where, in fact, I was working with a lot of clients and they were international to respect, but it was slightly different from where I came from before. So it can leave a bad taste in your mouth from the employee's side, but we won't get into that. But it's a really good point, and I guess that can help with the onboarding piece and having a sort of employees that are going to stick around longer in your business.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I always say to candidates, and I think I said to to previous direct employees that I would have been interviewing is, you're interviewing. The candidate is interviewing the employer as much as the employer is interviewing the candidate. So there's a responsibility that's shared, that the communication has to be right. So having the questions on both sides to uncover or clarify what the truth of the role is going to be, I think is important. So I guess one tip there, we're jumping ahead to the interviews, but to encourage the candidate to find out what they want to know and not be restricted in that.
Yeah, be asking questions as the candidate as well. Okay, so you've got here on the notes, include keywords and terms. Now, if you know anything about IT Rockstars, is one of our things that we do is SEO for MSPs. But are these keywords specifically from a search perspective, or is it more about the copyright or the communication piece within the actual job spec itself that's going to interest a potential candidate?
Yeah, I'm thinking more about search within job platforms.
Okay. All right.
Could equally apply though to um, a wider SEO perspective, especially if roles are advertised on the company's website.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm thinking specifically about the candidate, your next ideal employee, searching, read job site, whatever board that they're on, and if they're specifically looking for a role that's going to give them exposure to VMware, for example, they're going to be searching on VMware. Or if they particularly like Autotask or ConnectWise, then they may be searching for that.
So it's getting your mind into what the candidate would be searching for, because I know that can be missed quite a lot from job specs. Is the technical stuff? It's almost like, oh, it can sometimes be an afterthought from the employer side. They really want to know, is this person actually technically capable? But are they able to offer customer service and communication piece? But actually, when it comes to the techie piece, they're going to be searching these technical terms like VMware and things like that.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. On to the next slide then. So finding the candidates. So what did you have in mind for this this part of the process?
Yeah, so rather than this being, a pitch for what I do, this is really, I guess, educational in terms of what are the tools that you could employ. So,
Okay.
So in effect, if you put yourself in the position of an MSP wanting to find candidates, if there's no immediate urgency to making the hire, then using LinkedIn, for example, is a great tool to network with potential candidates that work either within MSPs currently or within the local area and within IT generally. As they would potentially be using LinkedIn to make contact with customers, you can do the same for people that may well be working within your business. So in the future, so ultimately, the aim would be to connect with them so that you then are interacting with their feeds, and at the time when you then specifically have an opportunity, you perhaps post that as a post on LinkedIn. If they're connected with you, that's going to show up in their feed potentially, and they'll find out that you're looking to recruit. And if at the time they're looking to move, then happy days. There's a candidate for you. But that although it could happen straight away, the reality is that's probably more a long-term solution. So doing LinkedIn campaigns when you want to hire is often too late.
Okay.
More urgently would be the use of job boards. And you can do this reactively or proactively. So you can gain access to job boards to search on CVs for registered candidates, and there are various search criteria that you can apply in terms of how active they have been when they were last active. You can search on their CV keywords. So if a candidate's put in there that they use Autotask in their current company, for example, then if you search on Autotask, you'll get all of the candidates that have put Autotask in their CV, and that probably means they've worked for an MSP.
Okay, that's a really good tip right there.
However, not everyone will, and there's more than one PSA, by the way. But ultimately, you can gain access for a limited time to do searches, identify some candidates, then you need to contact them, and you don't know how motivated they are to to actually be looking for a new role. I think if most people's CV probably exists with some age on it on a job board somewhere. So you can get a very high percentage of false positives.
Okay.
A candidate that looks great, but they're just not looking, or you've got to put the effort in to be able to make contact with them. Again, this is sales effectively. You don't just ring a potential customer once and hope they're there and answer the phone and have a need and want to work with you straight away. And the same is true here. So proactively searching job boards can be great, but again there can be a gap there to results.
Okay.
And then very urgent, you go to I should say, with the job boards you can also advertise the roles. So obviously you put an ad out, and with all advertising, you then can't necessarily control the response that you get to that. And I'll have put ads out for roles that I'm have recruited for in the past, and sometimes you get the best candidate and only one person will reply to the ad and they're brilliant and they get the role, and other times you get 50 responses and they can't even spell IT. They're totally not right for the role.
What does it stand for again?
Exactly. So that's the pro and the con of boards, and of course those techniques plus the momentum of continually recruiting is where a recruiter can bridge that gap in terms of speed of response, and that's ultimately what you're paying that recruiter for. You're paying them for their time in putting the legwork in to identify, nurture and present the candidates at the right time. You could not pay them, but you've got to do all of that work yourself. You might luck out and find someone quickly. Similarly though, you may not, and if your time is spent better winning new business, because that multiplies significantly what your return is for your time, the revenue that a customer will generate versus the money that you will save on not paying a recruitment fee, and that's the calculation. So
so it's almost like the recruiter. It's almost like they have almost like the warm lead and they keep it warm for you.
Correct.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Going back to the LinkedIn one for a second here. So would you, immediately pops into my head, this is just kind of like the hacker within me, would be going to my competitors, looking at their employees, and then going and reaching out to these employees. Was that something that you would recommend?
I wouldn't not recommend it.
Okay.
So yeah, that, as with all things, there's a balance to be struck here.
Yep.
If you are seen to be deliberately targeting a competitor, they might be a competitor now, they might be a collaborator in the future. So I think balance has to be applied. I don't think there's anything wrong in connecting and networking within your marketplace, and I don't think there's anything wrong with then putting out messages that may have value to the people viewing them. So I don't think, and I think if you were doing that, industry wide within within the location where you operate, I don't think there's anything at all wrong with that. However, I wouldn't advocate specifically targeting everyone that works for a particular competitor, because I think that would be on the wrong side of the calculation, and you don't want to do anything to anyone else that you wouldn't want to have happen to you. So,
Yeah.
I think I'm advocating a play nice with each other
Okay.
ethos. But yeah, by all means, if someone has worked for a competitor, then they probably have the skills and the aptitude that you want to employ.
Yeah.
And if that competitor is unable to satisfy the needs of the candidate, and you are, then happy days.
Excellent. Okay, next slide here. This is quite a big one, actually. We've got the interview process. You've broken this down into actually 4 sections here. So you've got actual interview, and phone call, having a phone call, then face to face, and the technical aptitude. Do you want to just go over what the process should be here?
Yeah. So I guess without going through line by line again, we want to make the interview process as efficient for everyone involved as we can. Where we can, if we can make it slick, then we should. If you know that 4 people are gonna need to be involved in the process, plan out when and how those 4 people are going to be involved. Don't arrange 4 first stage phone interviews where you all need to collaborate and agree. If 4 of you need to make the decision, then have 4 of you on the first call, compare your notes after, and then you can quickly move forwards or advise a candidate accordingly.
Would you always recommend you have a phone interview before a face-to-face?
Yes, absolutely.
What should be in that phone interview? What are sort of the questions?
Whatever you want. It can be a qualifier to the next stage. It could be a light sampling of the next stage. It could be really it's to avoid you blocking an hour or 2 out in your diary, getting the candidate to travel to you, which probably means they're needing to book time off of work if they're currently employed, or you giving up an evening if they're doing it after hours, for example. The phone interview is to stop that, where they turn up and within 2 minutes they're not right. If there's something real disconnect between the CV. So it's to avoid wasting more time further down the line, and it's also much quicker to organise a phone interview than it is a face-to-face. So it adds momentum to the process.
I see. Okay. So would this be an ideal time? Now you mentioned that piece where we as the IT business owner, we have to sell the role as much as the interviewee is selling themselves. So is this an ideal time to be maybe asking or put into the candidate's mind, you should maybe have some questions for us when you come to the interview about the business?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And I would be coaching the candidate to do research, so they're well prepared, and to have a set of questions ready. I say in case of awkward silences, but ultimately make sure you're covering off what you need, because if you're going to book a half day off of your current role, go to an interview, you've got to know that, for the candidate's perspective, they've got to know that it's going to be what they want if they're successful. So yes, absolutely, and probably more relationship development. So if you liken this to a sales process, you are on the first call with the customer, you're going to be, or the prospective customer, you're going to be looking to qualify that they're in your ideal customer scope. You're going to look to try and connect with them. You're going to look to demonstrate some value, that it's worthwhile them investing the time in the next stage, and you're going to you're going to want to close for the next stage, whatever that is. So if I'm candidate or employer, at the end of that call, I want to know what's happening next, and have that absolutely established. So you will come back to me within 24 hours, or we're just going straight to, we both like each other enough just to get the diaries out now and book a slot, or you will feed back to me via recruiter, etc., etc. So you want that established at the end of the call, for a minimum professionalism, and ideally to keep the momentum and the process moving along.
Okay, cool. And next we've got here the face-to-face. So obvious ones I see in these notes here is having an agenda, having a tour and an intro to team members. And I guess the really good one from the notes here is having a bank of questions in case the conversation doesn't flow naturally.
Yes.
That's a really good tip, actually, because I've been there before with that one there. But the fourth thing on this list here is include scenarios that will require a broad reply. Can you give me some examples of scenarios?
Now there we are. That's a trade secret, isn't it? I'll tell you what. I'll give you I'll give you one of my older ones, and this was a real scenario that happened. So this is for a technical technical recruit, and to be honest, I tended to use it across all levels. And the answer basically confirms in my mind roughly what level they are at. And so the scenario is a networking issue. You've been sent to a customer site. A week ago, one of your colleagues replaced the switch. In fact, I've done it wrong. I set the customer situation first. So, so we have a 20 user network, 20 PCs, one server, one router, all connected by way of structured cabling back to a single unmanaged 24-port switch. A week ago, one of your colleagues replaced the switch, and ever since then, all users on the network at one point or another have lost network connectivity. So 1 minute they're on the network, the next minute they're not, then their colleague's on, then the colleague's off. This has been bouncing around the help desk for a week. Customers not happy, everyone's scratching their heads. You've been sent to site to diagnose and resolve. What do you think the problem could be, and how would you go about it? So that's the situation.
Okay.
The technical amongst the listeners to this will already be thinking of some of the likely.
I'm thinking DHCP right off my head. So.
Okay, yeah, and I wouldn't want to discourage you, but yeah, could be DHCP, and then I might want you to just explain to me. So just describe what DHCP is, what it stands for, and why you think it could be the problem. So they might do that. Then someone else might talk about. You often end up with people talking about the router. And I'm like, okay, but I'm talking about network connectivity rather than internet connectivity. All right, gotcha. Then you talk about people looking at IP as the cause, and you get people looking at individual machines, and then you bring them back to the fact that it's actually affecting all the users and it's random. So then you get people talking about the process of, well, I'm just going to turn everything off and start turning stuff on, which is okay, because that shows a sort of logical process.
Yep.
And then so they'll rattle through a number of things, unless someone gives me the exact answer that I'm looking for straight away. And if they give me the exact answer I'm looking for straight away, I know they're a keeper. So anyway, they do that, and then if they're still not close to what I'm thinking, I'll then guide them towards roughly where I want them to be. So I'll say, okay, imagine you are stood in front of the switch. What's it going to tell you? So then they'll say, well, I can see lights. I'm like, okay, brilliant. What are the lights doing? And then some people get it, and then some people immediately then need to they keep going. So basically, the answer that I'm looking for is a loop back.
Yeah.
And the way it happened, and this was a real scenario, our engineer had effectively, to do the job quickly, just pulled out all the cables from one, plugged them all back in, hadn't followed good process. They'd ended up with a road cable going from one port into the other, and they were delighted that they'd done the job really quickly, because then they're going home early. But they were less delighted when someone from the customer from another office visited the office, looked at the switch, just awash with activity, and immediately spotted that there was a loop back, changed the cable, made us look very, very silly, and so the a third leveler with great MSP experience will immediately go to loop back, packet storm.
They've been there before. They know. Yeah.
Exactly right. So so that's one of the scenario. But I'm sure all of your listeners will have an issue that they'll have had recently, that they'll be able to describe that same, build the picture up, just take them through what the process was, and how they respond, then gives you a real good tell as to where their experience lies and where their capabilities are.
Excellent. So have some scenarios in this interview process. Okay.
Yep.
So we've got here, the next slide, Daniel, is the technical aptitude. Let me just look over here. Face-to-face technical aptitude include face-to-face or before. So what exactly is the technical aptitude? Is this technical questions, or is it an actual test here?
So again, you choose either. It could be like the scenarios we've talked about during the face-to-face. Could be before. So there are, you might just want to knock up a list of questions in a Word document or in an email and send it to them. You might want to use a testing product, of which a number are available, and then those products are looking at the speed of response. So you send someone a Word document, they might spend hours googling all the answers and therefore give spot on responses, but they don't actually know. Whereas the tests are looking at how quickly they answer. So it depends how granular you want to get with this, but have some kind of assessment, because then that evidence then supports your real conversation with the candidate. So candidates walks in, I've done XYZ, my expectation of salary is da-de-da, and sometimes their salary has outpaced their ability, because perhaps their employer has paid them to not leave, and we'll come on to the counter offer in a bit.
Okay.
So they're out of kilter with what they should be earning, which instills a misconfidence potentially. So having some evidentiary support to your conversation and say, look, actually, you're saying you're a third liner. I don't think you're a third liner, and this is why.
Here's why.
This is what you need to develop. I really like you, candidate, and my MSP will provide the right environment for you to develop and actually get to that level. But I've got to pay you at a level now that gives us scope to develop you, and and it's going to be, if I'm paying you third level money, I need you out doing third level things. Otherwise, I'm not getting the revenue to match the salary. Da-de-da. So yeah, having being able to confidently challenge or confirm where they believe they are technically is crucial to the negotiating stage.
That's an excellent piece right there, Daniel. And having that down on paper when you get to that point on the salary discussion. That's a really good tip there. Okay, so next we have let me just bring up this again here. I'm looking through the notes. The offer and hopefully acceptance. Mm-hmm. So when you found your ideal candidate, how quickly should we act on this offer?
Without delay. Without delay. Okay. The good ones go quickly, and they normally have their pick of the roles, and therefore you don't want to end up in a situation where you ponder a decision for a few days and then you lose the candidate. If you don't need to delay, don't worry about playing it cool. If you are upfront with someone, they'll appreciate that more than holding back and adding additional delay.
Okay, excellent. All right, next slide here is the counter offer. Now, this is a big problem actually in our part of the world, my part of the world here up in Aberdeen. There's a lot of oil and gas companies, and they have lots of money, and you find salaries are kind of crazily out of kilter with technical ability. So the counter offer is always a difficult thing here for locally for IT companies to deal with. So how do we deal with the counter offer?
You have to deal with it head on, I think. Different people will have different approaches. I favour actually talking about it up front, perhaps even during the interview, the face-to-face phase. So I'd want to know. So what other roles have you been looking at? So that you know whether how serious they are about working for an MSP or working an internal role, for example, which will dictate how they're likely to respond if and when you make them an offer. If they've been at lots of interviews, then you might want to quiz them on what the outcome of those interviews have been. Well, if you've been in these many interviews and it's good, why haven't you had lots of offers? I've had offers, but I turned them down. All right, why do you turn them down? That sort of thing, just to bring the conversation out. But I'd be straight away, right, what do you think your current employer is going to do when you go in and resign? And what impact is that going to have on their business, and what impact is it going to have on you, especially if they've been there a long time. They'll have formed relationships with their colleagues, so it become an emotional thing. They'll not want to let their colleagues down by leaving potentially. All sorts of things that are potential risks and will impact that process. So starting to talk it through with them as early as you can in the process, you'll then know whether or not your offer is going to be countered, and if so, where you're going to go with how that's going to affect what offer you make. So because ultimately you don't want to overpay someone if you don't need to. But there's no point making an offer that you know will be easily countered by an employer wanting to retain that person, even if it's only for a short period of time. So yeah, just talk about it and understand their views. And if you can work through it with them, maybe the offer doesn't necessarily need to be more money. It may well be that the very number why they're wanting to move on is something that's a personal benefit, a method of working, a hope for the future, etc. So constructing your offer based around all of those considerations will basically nullify, if it can be nullified, the counter when it comes.
Excellent. Okay. Onboarding. So having a process here. What should we include on our onboarding process?
Really, aside from all of the obvious stuff, and I say obvious stuff like taking them through the staff handbook, getting documentation signed, arranging meetings with their key colleagues, having a phased process of introducing them to processes, to the way the business operates, to setting expectations, regular touch points with them in terms of one-to-ones or meetings, or just even check-in calls, subject to where everyone is in the world, but very much that onboarding process should be informed by the process to date of the things are important to them, and that are important to you. So if during the interview process you've specifically talked about them needing to work towards updating their Microsoft certifications, for example, and they need to do 4 MCPs over the next 2 years for them to meet their payment salary increases. If that's what you've done, then you book in their diary now when they're going to take the exams, or what training time you're going to put into it. So rather than waiting to the probation review meeting or the next annual review and say, you've done your Microsoft certs then, have you? Oh no, I didn't, because my dog was ill, and and I saw a sad flower on the way to work one day, and that put me off, and all of the other random reasons why people won't have followed through on the initial enthusiasm. And that's really what I'm talking about with the structure.
Okay.
Booked in as far out as you can.
Okay, excellent. So this is the last slide here then, mapping out the future. So how should this be done for the candidate?
So well, I guess kind of follows on from what I've just talked about on the onboarding, to be fair. But yeah, really, as far ahead as you can look at that point, and be understanding what's likely to catch their eye in the future, so that and assuming that we've just gone through all of this process because we found someone on LinkedIn from a competitor, how are we going to stop that happening again in the future?
So keep in mind why they were leaving.
Yes, exactly right, and how you can negate or minimize the risk of that happening in the future. So yeah, sometimes, especially like annual meetings, annual review meetings, for example, they can always be seen as less urgent to a customer drama, or a quote that's got to get put in front of a customer, or some other shiny thing that's got your attention at the time. And it's this kind of stuff that if you don't keep to the discipline of doing it, that will create your next problem, because then they'll be leaving, and then you've got to start the whole process all over again. So it's just really keeping your eye on the future, trying to negate the risk where you can.
Excellent. Okay, it seems like I think we got a lot out of this masterclass today, and the process itself. And when I touched base with you, Daniel, we kind of said, well, you can offer part of this process as your service to MSPs and IT businesses. So can you just let us know what the service is that you're offering? So you can obviously do this whole process yourself, or Daniel can help you out.
Exactly right. So on the recruitment service, as you say, you can do all of that yourself, and I guess when you look at outsourcing, you outsource for one or two reasons: capability or availability, or sometimes both. And you can do all of this yourself, but if you don't have the time to do it, then it's a question of can you afford to have someone else do it. The key concern that most MSP employers that certainly that I had when I was recruiting for my own, and subsequently is the issue of the payment structure for recruitment. So it's typically a percentage of annual salary. It's typically due within the first few weeks of employment. It has a rebate period, maybe up to the first couple of months, but it reduces from week to week, and it's just totally out of flow with the employer's cash flow. So if you're billing monthly recurring revenue, then it's lots of little bits of money coming in. It doesn't allow for spikes like recruitment. So so effectively, as well as adding hopefully a very niche insight to recruitment for MSP generally, I also employ a commercial model that is as close to a recurring revenue model as I could achieve. So the investment in the recruitment process using myself is 11% of the monthly salary for up to the first 2 years of employment. So worst case or best case, an employee or a candidate stays for 2 years, you're effectively paying a net 22% fee.
Okay.
However, that is spread over 24 months.
Yeah.
Conversely, if someone comes in and stays for 6 months, for example, after the six monthly payment, there is no more fee. So it's a net 5.5% fee for that candidate that left after 6 months. So I call it in effect 104-week reducing rebate period. But it's not a rebate because you never paid for it. So effectively it's removing that cash flow bubble that traditional recruiters cause by the payment structure. So that's how it's a little bit different, and hopefully works better with the MSP cash flow model, and also I'm sharing the risk. I find a good one, and the good ones should stay. And therefore I'm sharing the risk. So a very, very different model to what's available from others. But if you're not an MSP, don't apply, because it doesn't work for all roles. It's purely MSP roles, but could be any role within an MSP. So a commercial one, a technical one, management across the board.
Excellent. Okay, so if anyone is interested in Daniel's services, it sounds like an excellent setup you've got there, and it really speaks to the MSP model, the monthly recurring revenue. They can get in contact with you, Daniel. I've got your contact details here. Is there a preferred method?
No, whichever is the contactee's preference. So yeah, happy to talk on all mediums.
Okay, so I'm really happy, appreciative that you've come on as the first masterclass here, Daniel, and you put all this effort into it as well, because we did cover quite a lot of topic here, in this topic and this process. So I really do appreciate you being on this. And as I say, folks, if anyone's looking to need help with that recruitment piece, Daniel is here to help. So please get in contact with him. Anyway, I will see you in the next masterclass next month. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thanks very much. See you guys later.